Hi, good morning. My name is Christopher Sadler. It's nice to see everybody again. I'm the research director here at IDS, and I've been here for just over a year.
And Stephen.
I'm Stephen Litch, also in the research department. 2 years, 11 days, I think. Yeah.
Who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting, right?
Chad Perry. You're muted.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chad. I'm with the Office of Special Counsel. Good to be on with you all today.
Rob Sharp. I think we just lost Rob. Gosh, I'm sorry. We'll come back to Rob if he reappears. Will Childs.
Morning, everybody. I am the Director of Budget and Planning. I've been with IDS since January 2022.
Eric Zachary.
Hey, I'm Eric Zagrai. I'm State Juvenile Defender. I'm winding my way through fifth term. I've been with IDS since 2005. I've been with Indigent Defense almost 25 years.
And Sarah Olson.
Hi, Sarah Olson. I'm the Forensic Resource Counsel, and I've been with IDS for 12 and a half years.
Len Gurdy.
Good morning. I'm the Appellate Defender. I've been with IDS since 2015 as the Appellate Defender.
And once again, Rob Sharp.
Rob Sharp, Capital Defender, the one hitting the absolute wrong button if you want to unmute yourself. I've been in the position of Capital Defender for next month will begin my 8th year.
And Dorothy, we have a number of chief public defenders and other guests. Would you like me to run through those folks? I have a pretty good view of the screen here.
Yes, please. I know we're missing a lot of public defenders with that conference that's going on, but
Okay. Well, I see. So I'll call on folks to introduce themselves briefly. I'll start with, let's see who's out there who hasn't been identified. John Neiman.
Hi, John Neiman. I'm the Chief Public Defender at the original and first Public Defender's Office in Guilford County.
All right. Jennifer Herjo.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Harjo, Chief Public Defender since 2008 in New Hanover County, and the first public defender for New Hanover County. We just opened Pender, and Bud Woodrum is on with me as well because I've needed a lot of help since we have a new public defender office in another county. So maybe Bud could introduce himself.
Good morning. I'm Bud Woodrum. I'm Assistant Public Defender in both now Pender and New Hanover counties. I work with Ms. Harjo. Been doing it for 9 years.
Nice to meet you, Bud. We're all excited about the office expansion. That's a great development. So
Well,
absolutely.
Appreciate y'all's help with that. Ms. Harjo's worked very hard. We've had some staff in here that are over backwards, breaking their backs, trying to get it done for us, and it's finally come together. We're really excited about it.
That's great. Okay, Sam Sneed.
Hi, Sam Sneed. I'm the Chief Public Defender in Asheville, North Carolina. I've been Chief Public Defender since 2020.
And Laura Gibson.
Good morning. I am Laura Gibson. I'm the Chief Public Defender for the 2nd Judicial District, the newest public defender district, I think, still. I've been the public defender since September 1st of 2022, so still fairly new. And I'm going to keep my video off because I've got 2 kids running around the office today.
I think that's a good reason to keep your video on, but
Yes.
Then we also have special guest Beth Thomas, who we'll be hearing from later today. Beth.
Good morning, Beth Hopkins Thomas from North Carolina Prisoner Legal Services since 2020. And Ms. Gibson, I also have 2 monsters running around the room, so you might get an extra show.
Uh-oh. They took issue with being called that, Beth. Is that Kevin? Is that Kevin Tolley?
I don't know if that's Kevin Telly or Kevin Boxberger, so we'll
Okay.
let them introduce.
Oh,
Kevin
okay.
Boxberger, it's me. I'm a regional defender with IDS. I've been with IDS since November of last year. Prior to that, I practiced criminal defense in Wake County for about 10 years.
And I've seen Lydia Hosa kind of fade in and out, so I don't know if she's on at the moment. Lydia? Lydia's our chief in Cleveland and Lincoln, which is, until Pender opened, was our newest presence. And hopefully she can log back on when she's able. Okay, well, I think that's everybody. So thank you, Dorothy. I'll turn it back over to you.
All righty. Okay. All righty. So now back to, other than me making that minor change with moving up the welcome of Mr. Ellis. Thank you, everybody, for the introductions. Welcome to everybody again. And I will entertain a motion to adopt the proposed agenda. Unmute yourself, please.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. I need a first. So Brian, I'll take that as you are making the motion.
I am making the motion that we.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right. I have a motion and a second to adopt the proposed agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Or raise your hand. That works too. I can see you. All right. Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. And let me read the State Government Ethics Act reminder. I need to remind all members of this commission, you are hereby advised of your duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflict, and are instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before the commission with respect to which there is a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict. So if you have one, please let us know now, or at the time you realize that you have it, let us know at that point. All right, so I've already given my kind of remarks and welcome Mr. Ellis, and we will move on, Ms. Pollard, to your report.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. I'll be relatively brief. We have a pretty good agenda here today. First, I wanted to take a minute to thank some of the IDS staff who you don't see on the call today and don't often get to interact with. But as some of you know, the air conditioning's been out at 123 West Main on the 4th floor since the 26th of June. And thankfully, because we had a pandemic and we know how to work remotely now. So a lot of us have been working remotely and working out of the Judicial Center when we can. But, you know, people have to go in and check the mail and make sure the phones are being forwarded and print and all that good stuff. So it's been really hot. And thank you to Lynn Turner and Matt Silva, Cliff Bellamy, Kristen DeSimone, who have been keeping us in business during this really unpleasant period. Angela Henderson, our contracts administrator, has to go in a lot because she's got a paper heavy practice. So thank you to those folks. I also wanted to thank our set-off debt staff, Julie Saunders and Miranda Evans, who work here out of the fiscal department. Julie reported last week they've had a really challenging tax year or tax season because some of the changes in procedure caused by e-courts, Wake County being one of the largest counties, of course, for set-off debt. But Julie reported that exclusive of the 4 Odyssey counties, the total net receipts from DOR set-off debt for this year is $5,265,520, which is almost $700,000 more than it was last year. So it's a good income season, I guess, here at IDS. So thank you to all of those folks because they all work really, really hard. They have hard, challenging jobs. Okay, so on to my next item, 2023 legislative session. I have really nothing to report since I updated you all at the end of April on this. From news reports, it appears that the budget will be taken up again mid-August. We're hopeful there will be a budget and it will include PD expansion. As you know, the House budget and the Senate budget were good in that respect. The House budget had 4 new districts. The Senate budget had 6 new districts. And of course, we'd love to see 8 new districts, which would be the combined, because they didn't totally overlap, but we don't know what it will look like, or exactly when it will happen. There's, in your packet, we included some press about the that PD expansion has been getting. I think it's been largely positive, and I'm glad we're getting some traction in the press for the attorney shortages we're facing. We're lawmakers and other policy people have been really receptive to us, so we just have to keep pushing forward. I did want to point you to the memo that Whitney circulated yesterday that was prepared by Chris Sadler. There was an assertion in the WRAL piece in particular that seemed to, or that flat out said that in 3 counties, Hope, Gates, and Camden, that private retained counsel got significantly better outcomes than public defenders. And we followed up with the producer of the piece, Kevin Boxberger, got the raw source material from which they sort of, I think, made a layperson's attempt at interpreting that data. Our research director, Chris Sadler, looked at it and has explained in that memo why that data doesn't support that assertion. I think the memo is pretty self-explanatory. He got it to us yesterday. He's here if anybody has any questions for him. I'm going to reach back out to the reporter this afternoon and ask them for a correction, or to at least talk to us about these things before they report on statistics in the future. So we know historically that our PDs, that there's no significant difference between outcomes in PDs versus retained counsel. So other than that, the piece was positive, right? It highlighted the attorney shortages. I thought that she talked to Kevin Boxberger, our regional defender. She talked to an attorney from Tanya's district, I think, Dustin Pittman, who was pretty heartfelt about why public defense is so important that needs to be adequately resourced. Other legislation of interest, there isn't any legislation pending that would change the scope of services for which IDS is responsible. Don't think there's any legislation pending that would appear to have a significant impact on PAC spending or PD workloads. There were a couple of pieces that Eric was following, and he may have some update on that, but my understanding is none of them are likely to move. So really not a lot to report on the legislative front. I did want to call to your attention an idea that is floating around out there, and we didn't include the one pager in the packet, and maybe we need to send that around. But a couple of months back, I was invited to and did attend a meeting with Justice Phil Berger Jr. and with Jesse Smith from the School of Government about an alternative licensing proposal that Justice Berger is a proponent of. And the original written proposal provided that, and the only written proposal that I've seen, that it proposed that law students who did not pass the bar could go practice in economically distressed counties under the 3rd-year practice rule, and then perhaps have a different route to licensure than taking the bar. Like eventually they could be waived in by their local judiciary. So I had some concerns about this that I shared with Justice Berger, particularly kind of about availability of qualified attorneys to supervise and the adequacy of supervision and other practical concerns that I have. At that meeting and then at a subsequent meeting of the Equal Access to Justice Commission that I was invited to attend, the proposal was discussed further by Justice Berger in a manner, it's broadened to include not just indigent defense, but also district attorneys' offices or nonprofits who provide legal aid. There was a pretty healthy discussion about it at the Equal Access to Justice Commission meeting. And I don't know where it goes from here. I think there's likely going to be a legislative study committee about it, and I will keep on top of that and report back. But y'all ought to know that's out there. You may have opinions and they want to weigh in. That the intent is to help with the attorney shortage in rural areas. And I think that's all I have for my report. We can go to fiscal reports unless anybody has any questions or follow up on any of those topics.
No, but I do want to thank you, Mary, for all that you are doing and the fact that you are working with them with that commission and getting that information for us. Those legal deserts are a big deal. One, and then I think it's very concerning too what you said. And I just want to report, because she's not going to say it herself, that Mary was appointed to the Board of Legal Specialization with the State Bar. So we're super proud of you for that too, Mary. So yeah, does anybody have any comments or questions for Mary? All right, I got to get back used to my Zoom protocol and looking around and see if I see anybody looking like they're moving up to, especially you, Rob, to see if you unmute. Okay, so let's move fiscal reports.
Certainly.
Sorry, I'll use the owl, sorry. Used to unmuting myself. Just make sure everybody can hear me. Just a few remarks. I'm happy to report that we have hired a new accounts payable supervisor here in the fiscal office, Shannon Simmons. She happens to be off today. She's not feeling the best. Otherwise, would have asked her to come down and so you could meet her in person. But Shannon joins us from AOC's fiscal office, so she has a great deal of experience here, but also with the Secretary of State's office. And she's been with us just over a month and has done a tremendous amount of work. Among the things she's helped us do is clear some of our travel backlog. All our PD and statewide defender offices travel reimbursements are caught up and current, which is something we couldn't say before Shannon joined us. So we're very pleased. She's a hard worker and brings a great deal of experience. So a lot of dividends there. The other thing we've done now is some staff that we added in March are sort of fully up to speed, trained and integrated in our operations. And we have reassigned our counties, if you will, rather than just spreading the 100 counties for which we pay the PAC attorneys across 4 staff. We've now spread it across 5. Things are starting to speed up a little bit. Our website's up to date in terms of who handles which counties. So if you encounter any PAC attorneys that have questions about their PFs, our website should reflect who they can speak to, and they can always contact me. I would rather handle some of the research and resolution myself or with Shannon's assistance and allow the staff to focus really on just getting the hardworking attorneys that do PAC work paid. And along those lines, something else that we're doing next month is Chad and I are going to attend the Assistant and Deputy Clerks Conference down in, I think, Carolina Beach or Wilmington. Just so we can share with them a little bit about what we do here and how we really need their cooperation and collaboration to make sure that our stakeholders, predominantly the PAC attorneys, get paid in a timely manner. So I think there is maybe a need to create greater understanding of how we work and allow us to have greater understanding of how the clerks work. Most of the clerks we speak to are great, helpful, cooperative. And then sometimes I think there's just some misunderstanding. So if we can iron out some of those differences and create a greater understanding, I think it'll help all our stakeholders. So that's a really brief fiscal update, but the state of fiscal affairs is healthy. And that couldn't be done without the help of Will, finding funds for us to add staff and for Chad's assistance to keep educating us on policy and technical matters. So everything looks good, but if there's any questions, you all can reach out to me anytime. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have any questions? All right.
Did Will have anything he wanted to?
Yeah, I was going
to. Okay.
I just wanted to tell everybody, we just finished the fiscal year 23 fiscal year. We're still closing that out. Our expenses for this year were 159.1 million. That's up from 140 last year and a little less than 130 the year before. There's a couple of reasons for that. We'll go into this at the next meeting. But mainly courts are operating at a higher level than they were in the last couple of years. The PAC rates have gone into effect and increased spending there. And we have new public defender offices. So the split between PAC and public defender and administration is still about the same, 54% to PAC, 44% to public defenders, and 2% for administration. Still the leanest administration in all of state government. So I'll give you all more update on this at the next commission meeting. I have charts, pretty things for you to look at, and we can talk about what's going on with the state of the budget then. But I'm looking forward to that. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Childs. We like that smile on your face when you talk about a budget. All right, Mr. Boykin. Relief from civil judgments. Do we have anything on relief from civil judgments?
Just two to report. April 22, the commission approved this process, and part of the process is reporting anytime that a request for relief has been granted by the director. We've done two, we reported two in the last commission meeting. We have two more to report, and this time around, both cases, relief was granted. There's a detailed report in the packets, so I won't go into too much detail. But relief was granted in two instances. Both of them met the criteria. One was criteria of medical issues and disability. The other one was granted on there being a showing that might fall short of what the Innocence Inquiry Commission required, but where a sentence was commuted short of a pardon. So relief was granted in those two instances, and the detail is in the report. If anybody has any questions on it, I'm glad to address those.
Any questions? All right, thank you, sir. Next, we'll move on to staff reports, and starting with, got the MAC program. Elsie Tucker. Do we have anybody reporting there? Ms. Angela, Kevin.
Kevin and Angela will be speaking.
Okay, good deal.
I think Kevin has a PowerPoint to share, so we'll give him a minute to get situated.
All righty.
Although he seems to have disappeared. Oh, here he is.
There we go.
There we go. Yep, I'm here. Can you see
It looks
the
good.
PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see it really well.
Perfect. Okay. So as I introduce myself, I'm Kevin Boxberger. I'm a regional defender for IDS. I cover 7 different counties. I cover Wake County, District 10, District 11, which is Harnett, Lee, and Johnston, and then District 8, which is Wayne, Lenoir, and Greene. Those are all MAC counties. MAC stands for Managed Assigned Council, and that is our delivery system that we just switched to in December of 2022. If you all remember, prior to that, it was the RFP unit-based system. So I'm here to report on kind of the status of the Managed Assigned Council and some obstacles, or not necessarily related to the MAC, but what we're seeing throughout the MAC delivery system. So I want to give a brief overview of what MAC is if you're unfamiliar. I'm sure most of you are familiar, but I'll run through a brief overview of what it looks like, what the numbers are as far as how many total contractors we have, how many we've added, how many have paused, which is allowed under the MAC delivery system, as well as how many have terminated since we started in December of 2022. And then I think it's important when I talk about pauses and terminations to discuss the reasons that the attorneys are providing to me being out in the field as to what's going on. So the MAC delivery system, again, was started in December of 2022. It primarily covers counties in central to eastern North Carolina. We have Caswell, Person, Granville, Vance, Warren, Franklin, Durham, Orange, Alamance, Chatham, and then the 7 counties that I listed as well. Pitt County is a MAC county. However, we do not have any contractors in Pitt County. That is solely the PD's office. So it's, again, generally in central North Carolina, eastern North Carolina. I cover 7 counties. Chief Regional Defender Tucker Charms covers the remaining counties. The current rate, as I'm sure we're all familiar with, is $65 an hour for misdemeanors and low-level felonies, and $85 for high-level felonies. And again, for my purposes, I'm speaking for the adult criminal. I'm not going to address the juvenile abuse, neglect, dependency, any special proceedings. The mechanics, they work differently. So instead of under the RFP system where you contracted for a certain number of cases and you got paid a flat fee, instead here, you report your hours to IDS every month and then IDS will pay you. That is different in the other 82 counties where they have the PAC and they still have to complete the fee application. So in the MAC counties, you report your hours to IDS, IDS pays you, and the non-MAC counties, you still submit the fee application to the judge. The judge signs it, and then it gets processed through the clerk and then to IDS. Attorneys can pause at any time or terminate with 30 days written notice. Chief Regional Defender Tucker Charnes and I, we actually encourage this. I'll go on and explain here in a moment as to why we're seeing more of this. But you can pause when you feel overwhelmed. Not only do they have a Sixth Amendment right to effective assistance of counsel, but we also have the rules of professional conduct that prohibit us from taking cases that we cannot provide effective representation. So if we notice, because we manage caseloads, that an attorney's case numbers are getting too high, we'll have a discussion with them and take remedial action. That has happened. If anyone saw the WRAL interview that I provided to the reporter, there was an attorney in one of the counties that I oversee that had close to 500 cases. As soon as I found out about it, we had a conversation, we put her on a pause, and then now we're working through the cases currently. There was another attorney that had close to 500 by 450 cases. Again, he was also paused, and what we're seeing now is we're starting to see more people pause. But that is a feature of the MAC system that I think is beneficial to the attorneys. I also think that it's attractive to the attorneys because they understand, hey, if I get too many cases, then I can pause and they don't feel ridiculed, which is an adjective that I've heard. We actually encourage it. And then if you feel like, hey, I cannot, for whatever reason, I do not want to provide indigent defense, then you can terminate with 30 days written notice. I do want to mention that the non-MAC counties still have to file the fee app. The recoupment doesn't change. If the case is recoupment eligible, then the attorneys still have to file the recoupment. Now, by the numbers, we currently have 111 contractors. Since we started MAC in December, we have added 25 new attorneys. The 4 examples are not exhaustive. Those are just ones I wanted to highlight. We added 9 attorneys to the high-level list in Wake County. That was a significant area of concern because that list was dwindling in Wake County, and then we know it's a more high-volume county. We also added 9 misdemeanor attorneys, 4 attorneys to the misdemeanor list in Harnett. Again, that's important because when we started the MAC delivery system, we only had 1 attorney in Harnett County on the misdemeanor list, 1. That means that he would have gotten all of the misdemeanor appointments. We've since added 4. 2 attorneys on the high level list in Lenoir County, 2 attorneys on the low level and misdemeanor list in Wayne County. The 2 attorneys in the high level list, that's important as well because there are 2 contractors who are on the list in Wayne County for the high level appointments. They're the same 2 attorneys that are on the Lenoir County list for high level appointments. And one of those attorneys is the only attorney in Greene County that's providing high level services for high level felonies in Greene County. So essentially you have 2 attorneys covering District 8. Now, what we have seen within the last few months is more attorneys taking pauses. We have a total number of 45 pauses of the 111. Now, I want to be clear, attorneys can contract for more than 1 list. They can be on the misdemeanor list, a low-level felony list, and a high-level felony list. We have very few, if any, on all 3 lists. You'll either see misdemeanor low-level felony or low-level felony and high-level felony. So this pause does not mean that the attorney paused their entire contract. It could be, hey, I'm getting too many misdemeanors. I'm pausing the misdemeanors, but I'll continue to accept low-level felonies. Nevertheless, if an attorney does pause that misdemeanor, that still means that the cases that would have been assigned to that attorney now go to the others on the list, and it kind of creates a domino effect. We have had 11 terminations for various reasons since we started. I want to talk about the pauses and the terminations because we do have an attorney shortage. We also know that the North Carolina State Bar has created a subcommittee for legal districts that I'm going to be speaking at later this month, where we have attorney shortages both in MAC and in non-MAC counties. So this is not exclusive for MAC. However, how it relates is because we are seeing some of the attorneys pause or terminate. But again, I want to be clear that it's not necessarily correlated with the delivery system. In fact, I think that it's a good system for the attorneys. Around March or April of 2023, that's when we started to see attorneys ask for a pause or terminate at a more frequent rate than they were the first couple of months. As an example, in Wake County, we have had 18 attorneys either pause or terminate their contracts. That is significant. I think the assumption is we have a lot of attorneys in Wake County. That's where I practiced for almost 10 years. But that's still a significant number of attorneys. Most of those are concentrated to either the high level list or the misdemeanor list. So we're starting to kind of creep back down to where we were when we first started on the high level list. 3 attorneys on the low level felony list in Wayne County are paused. Now put a note. This is significant because although 3 attorneys are paused, 1 terminated in January of 2023, we started with 4. We have 0. The attorney on the low-level felony list, I spoke with an attorney in Johnston County, and he agreed to come down and provide some low and high-level relief in Wayne County. The problem is he's coming from Johnston County, and he still has a caseload in Johnston County, so he's going to be commuting back and forth. Moreover, he's the only attorney on the low-level list in Wayne County, which means he's getting all of the low-level felonies. I was in Wayne County a couple of weeks ago, and within the first 2 weeks, he had over 27 appointments. So I do not think that is sustainable. I think before too long, we're going to have another conversation about the workload. One of the other attorneys is one that had close to 500 cases. And again, I spent some time this week trying to work down those cases and see how we can manage her caseload more effectively. But nevertheless, that is a significant problem in Wayne County. In Lee County, both of the attorneys that started on the list are paused for various reasons. That means we only had 2. Both are paused. Now we have 0 on the high-level felony list in Lee County. I was able to go to Harnett County and ask 2 attorneys there, hey, can you come over and provide some relief in Harnett County? And they agreed. So I'm covering these counties and I'm talking with the attorneys and we're all working together. And I will tell you the MAC attorneys have been phenomenal. They're doing their best. But I think one of the problems that you're going to see is they're pausing or terminated because their workloads are increasing. I just want to give a brief example under the RFP system. That was the unit-based system. We contracted for a certain number of cases. For one contract, and you could have multiple like I did. But for one contract for misdemeanors, there was a range of 8.5 to 10.3 cases. The low-level felonies were 4.6 to 5.6. Since we started the MAC, there's one attorney in Harnett County has had 32 in March, 43 in April, 26 in May, and 57 in June. She has a contract for misdemeanor and low-level felony. If you combine the maximum, that's 15.8. So she's almost doubling, well, in some cases, tripling that number as far as the appointment number of cases. An attorney in Wake County was on the low-level and high-level felony list. She got 16 in May and 19 in June. If you combine those numbers, it's about an average of about 7.68. And I'm kind of going through each one of my counties. In Lee County, a misdemeanor high-level felony from February to May, respectively, 34, 26, 31, 16, and 18. She ended up finally taking a pause. Actually, all of these attorneys I mentioned are currently paused or terminated one of their contracts. In Lenoir County, there's an attorney from February to May, 31, 45, 25, 39. And then I'm going to give you 2 more brief examples. Wayne County attorney on the misdemeanor and low-level felony, 56, 48, and 58 back to back to back. And then one more, the one attorney that we paused due to caseload. She's on the misdemeanor and low level in Wayne, 33, 53, 45, 42, and 49. So what you're starting to see correlates with them starting to pause because they're getting loaded up at the front end. And now they're getting to a point with 150, 200, 300 cases that they cannot continue to accept these appointments, which again is something that we encourage them to do because not only does it assist the attorney, but also ensures that the client gets effective representation. Now, I do want to share a couple of letters that I've received when an attorney pauses or terminates to try to reach out to the attorney and say, can you give me a reason? We want to better understand what is going on. I've discussed the increase in the workload, delays due to Odyssey, and the length of time to disposition, and some of these letters will cover those. A law firm in Wake County has been, oh man, probably 15, 20 years has been doing indigent defense, and they recently terminated their contracts. He said a combination of a heavy caseload of court appointed, particularly DWIs, the increased administration with reporting the cases, and then a slower court system by way of e-courts, where we're still tied to the courthouse and cannot be as productive. These have led us to be less efficient. We've become backed up, reaching out to clients and being ready to discuss cases with prosecutors. We are concerned that our expectation as to how we handle cases is at risk. Another attorney says, I have about 100 cases open under the new hourly system, which is the MAX system, about half of which are high-level felonies. This volume, along with the problems and disposition delays generated by the new e-courts and Wake County case management policies, has me concerned that I cannot provide full service legal representation to all of my clients as I've been able to do historically. There simply aren't enough hours in the week to do the work at current levels. Another attorney in the last response that I'll share, since joining this list in March, I've been appointed to dozens of low-level felonies, and I'm on track to surpass the ABA's recommendation for the number of cases. And if you're unfamiliar, ABA has caseload recommendations of 150 for felonies, 400 for misdemeanors. There is, that I'm aware of, I don't think that there is a caseload when you cross between the two. They just say 150 felonies, 400 misdemeanors. But when you have an attorney on multiple lists, I'm not unaware of that number. I will point out that within the next couple of weeks, the ABA is going to come out with an amended caseload recommendation, and I expect that to be lower. Nevertheless, she continues and says that those recommendations state that an attorney cannot handle more than 100, or recommends that an attorney not handle more than 150 felonies per year. That an attorney not handle more than 150 felonies per year before the end of my first year on the list, just based on the Wake County appointments. This figure does not contemplate her federal cases, appellate cases, and her retained cases. I think sometimes we think that PAC attorneys or MAC attorneys only handle court-appointed work, but they also have retained work or juvenile cases. So we have to take that into consideration as well. She said, I would note that the NCA recommendation of no more than 150 felonies a year comes from 1973. And it's my opinion that the advances in scientific testing, surveillance methods, and other digital, highly technical discovery that the 150 figure of the Burger Court era is overly ambitious, given the work it takes to properly review discovery these days. I'm sure we're all aware of body and dash cam. That's the one that comes to mind. We can sit and watch body cam or dash cam, which we need to do in order to advise our clients and prepare a defense. That could be hours. And that's for one officer. You have multiple officers, and then you get a 5 or 10 minute clip. So the discovery, cell phone data, hire an investor, some digital expert, it takes longer. So I do agree with this attorney that once we get these recommendations, it's going to be lower. I think a lot of our MAC attorneys are already over those limits, are going to be over those limits. She continues and says, this volume, along with problems and disposition delays generated by the e-court system and the local court practices, leads me to believe I cannot provide the best representation for all of my clients in keeping with the standards I set for myself, as well as the standards that my firm sets out and that our state bar and the Constitution demand. There simply aren't enough hours, similar to the other attorneys, in a week to do the work that is required. I owe it to my current clients to bring the volume of my appointments down so that I can give them the representation they deserve and to which they are entitled. So the volume is increasing, as I've noted in some of the caseload numbers that I provided. The attorneys are also telling me directly, hey, caseload issues, the delays in e-courts, fortunately or unfortunately, all 4 of the pilot counties are counties that I cover, and I've been heavily involved in that. I'm hopeful. I know we've come a long way. I'm hopeful we'll continue to progress, but that still doesn't change the fact that we've had these delays, and it's resulted in substantial backlogs. And then the length of time to disposition. And this next screen, here's some graphs from AOC's website from 2020, 2021, and 2022. For felonies, as you can see, the majority of felony convictions that are resolved in fiscal year are class H's and I's. In 2020, the average time to disposition, or average time to disposition or sentencing was 7 months. As we increase, again, the majority of the cases that are resolved by conviction for felonies is H's and I's. And now we're increasing 9 and 9. You would expect that to happen because this is during COVID. But nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that these cases are building up. The longer they take to dispose, the more cases that they're getting in the meantime. In 2022, fiscal year 2022, again, we still see the same trend. The majority of convictions for felonies are H's and I's. As you note, the high-level felonies are increased since 2020 and 2021. And then the 9 months stay the same for the class H. However, if you look at the class I, that increased to 10 months. So just from a couple of years ago, we have a 3-month increase in the resolution of class I felonies, which are, possession of cocaine, PWISD marijuana, B&E of a motor vehicle. Some of these cases that should be resolved in an efficient and quick manner are taken 10 months. Not to mention, you have to be a prior record level 4 in order to even get an active sentence. So you're looking at probation or split sentence for 1 through 3. So it's actually, the data shows it is taking longer. This isn't just the attorneys telling us. The data, AOC's own data is showing that these cases are taking longer. Regarding misdemeanors, because that was addressed more so towards the felonies. Well, first I'll note that criminal superior court, the disposed median days, again, that's not the average, that's the middle. The disposed median days for felonies once they are in superior court is still 355 days. Again, that's hard to believe why H's and I's absent your client wanting to go to trial would take that long to resolve. And again, that creates this caseload issue because they keep stacking up. With misdemeanors, in Wake County, there's a 120-day local rule that you're supposed to resolve the cases within 120 days of the first setting. And again, this doesn't apply to Wake County, but more generally speaking, 248 days for non-motor vehicle, non-chapter 20 offenses. We're talking about 8 months to resolve these cases. Now, this is significant because misdemeanors are volume. We have more volume with misdemeanor cases than we do low-level and high-level felonies. So it's taken almost 8 months to resolve these misdemeanors, and I'm still getting 20 or 30 every month, and I can't resolve, or there's an issue or some obstacle that's preventing me from resolving these cases in a more efficient and quicker manner. And again, that's resulting in higher caseloads. The higher caseloads are resulting in attorneys pausing and terminating their contracts. I think everyone knows this, but I felt like I would put it because it is something that is expressed to me. So we have the volume problem, but we also have the money issue. I think every MAC attorney I've spoken to is elated that the commission, Ms. Pollard and the commission have all decided to raise the rate. We started in 2010, it was $75 an hour. It dropped to $55 an hour, and then it went back up in 2022 to $65 an hour. According to the Bureau of Statistics, the Federal Bureau of Statistics, even if we were still paying the attorneys $75, if you account for inflation today, that would be $105.60. But we still don't even pay the attorneys $75. We pay them $65. That does not account for, as I put in here, taxes that come out. That does not account for the increase in office space that has significantly increased. We know the real estate market has boomed. Employee salaries have also gone up. If you have staff, and we actually encourage staff for the administrative tasks, you're spending longer in court for whatever reason, you have to come back, you have to return client calls, you have to write letters, you have to write motions. We encourage staff, but we're still only paying $65 an hour, and that is a substantial obstacle. Now, to be clear, most of the attorneys I speak to that are currently on the list mention volume issues. But recruitment, I sent out a letter to a district bar asking for help because we didn't have anyone. And I got several responses say, well, if IDS pays more money, then I'll get on the list. So I think it is a retention issue that's been identified, but I also think that it would help recruit more attorneys. You have these private firms who see the overhead, who see the taxes, who see the employee salaries and think, I cannot sustain my practice. In that WRAL article, statements that were not shown in the article from Mr. Pittman, who provided an interview, he goes into that and says like it's very challenging, very difficult to run an office with more than just myself with the current rates. And again, I expressed to them, what the status is, but nevertheless, pay is an issue in retaining, but more importantly, recruiting new attorneys to provide relief for those that are currently on the list. So just the quick summary, I went over the MAC. We went over some of the numbers. We have added numbers. I think the system is great. I think it's positive. One of the obstacles we're having is just the volume. eCourts has created some of the issues in the 4 pilot counties, but again, I don't think that's exclusive to just the MAC counties. I think that also applies to the non-MAC counties, but we are losing attorneys. We're having a very difficult time recruiting attorneys. As I mentioned, Tucker and I together have added 25 attorneys, but just as many, if not more, have paused or terminated their contracts. So we're kind of at a deficit at this point. And again, it's not because of MAC, it's just because of volume and low pay. So if you have any questions, I am out in the field every day speaking to the attorneys, speaking to the judges, relaying information to Ms. Pollard, Ms. Fairbanks, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much for that. Anybody have any questions or comments? I really appreciate you delving into that article and the data there. I really do. Kate, I see your hand up. I'm gonna go to you.
Thank you. So Kevin, yeah, thank you so much for this really stark overview of, because I agree, I don't think it's the MAC. I think MAC is an improvement over the contracts for sure. And there's a combination of things obviously that have impacted, attorneys. But I guess I had a couple questions. Is there any thought of a caseload limit, or how does that work if they are on the, and I apologize if I should probably know this, but how does that work in terms of cases being assigned?
I think that's an excellent question. I've actually had a meeting with the Chief Public Defender in Wake County about this. I think the hesitation, I'm all for a caseload limit. I brought it to Ms. Pollard, Ms. Charnes, we've discussed it. I think the concern from various court officials, including senior resident Superior Court judges, is, well, if we put a caseload limit on the attorneys and they meet that limit, then we cannot appoint an attorney to the next defendant who appears before me. For example, I had a senior resident tell me, we have one attorney on the misdemeanor and low-level felony list in Greene County. It's the same attorney. And I went to the district as soon as this occurred, and I said, we cannot appoint all of these cases to this attorney. We're going to lose him. He's not going to be able to provide effective representation. A response was, well, I'm not going to let someone walk out of this courtroom without an attorney. So I think that's the battle. And even if we set caseloads, which I think is important, is getting the jurisdictions to abide by them. And I understand it is uncomfortable saying you're entitled to counsel, but we don't have an attorney. And I understand that, but on the other hand, they're not going to be receiving effective representation, even if they do get an attorney, and that raises more problems.
And I guess the question though is, at what point do we force that issue and just, say we cannot ethically and nor do we have the attorneys that we can appoint to at this point without the legislature increasing our ability to pay them, the appropriate, hourly rate, and also create a caseload that is manageable, that this is just ineffective assistance of counsel per se. And I understand why the Superior Court judges want to keep appointing them, because at least they can say they've given them counsel, but is it any kind of meaningful counsel at that point? And I just think this is so stark, and I think we're going to lose more and more people. And at some, I think this has to be a sort of a call to a crisis at this point. And I think one of the other questions I also had that's totally separate is just what oversight sort of is there in terms of the, like, we have a lot of situations with, I think, MAC attorneys here in Orange where people are not seeing their clients in custody for, a month before, after appointment. And I don't know if that's normal or not, but I'm guessing it's because they're so overwhelmed with cases that visiting their clients in custody may not be the most pressing concern, but it's obviously extremely concerning for the people and the families.
I'm sorry, I missed your second question. What was?
Oh, sorry, Kevin. It was just about what requirements or oversight is there in terms of visiting and seeing and communicating with clients, because that's sort of the as in my position, that is the complaint I see most regularly about the MAC attorneys, is that they don't see that. And I had one guy the other day who was on a robbery with a dangerous weapon. He's been in for 3.5 weeks and his attorney has not seen him. It's not a public defender case. But it is court appointed. And so how, that's what's going to be sacrificed, right? It's that communication with clients, seeing them in custody because they've got to be running around, to court where they're going to be held in contempt if they don't show up. So I get it, but it's also deeply concerning.
So this is very dear to me because for the MAC attorneys in the counties that I oversee, when a client writes a letter, I get it. So I'm very in tune with the attorneys that are having more challenges in seeing the clients. We have a guideline that says if you have a client that is in custody, you're supposed to see them 3 days within notice of the appointment. And I know there are obstacles to that, especially if you're in a multi-county jurisdiction. But we do have a guideline. When someone writes to me, I reach out to the attorney. I've had a lot of success in facilitating the communication between the attorneys and the clients. I encourage the attorneys and have discussions with them about the importance of maintaining contact, not just a letter. My opinion is sometimes no update's a good update. Just going to the jail and saying, hey, I don't have an update for you, but this is what we're doing, or this is what the status of the case is. And in a way, that is an update. So that's the oversight that I can provide. I think the unfortunate thing, another thing that I do is I go to the jails and try to get the jail lists. Every morning I get a jail list. It doesn't tell me when the visitation occurs, but at least I know who's in custody and for how long, and I can investigate. I think the challenge for me is a lot of it's reactive. I don't know until someone writes me a letter. And I'm trying to be proactive. I oversee 69 attorneys. That is a lot in 7 different counties. So I travel to the counties, I speak with the attorneys. That doesn't, take into account me dealing with e-courts or consulting with attorneys or my other job duties. That's just client contact. So we do have measures set in place to help. Again, I think one of the issues though is sometimes you don't know until it's brought to your attention.
Great, thank you. Art, I see you next up there. Art, did you have a question or comment? You're muted. Okay, I think you're muted now.
Okay, it takes a while to get it unmute. Kevin, first of all, thank you for the work that you've done in summarizing this issue. One of my questions was the same as Kat's, and that's, are we going to put a limit on how many people an attorney can see? And I understand all the dynamics there. My second question, though, is, are we going to take this whole issue, and this may be a Mary answer more than anybody else, are we going to take this to the state bar and tell them what processes we are having and what difficulties we're having?
If I can just I want to add one thing that I'm going to send out some emails to attorneys because of how I know it's as far as the withdrawal and the caseload issue is working in the field. I'm actually encouraging attorneys to file motions to withdraw, cite the Constitution, cite the rules of professional conduct, and then kind of put the ball in the judge's court and tell the judge, I can't do this. Now, if the judge tells you to remain on, then you have to pursue as you seem necessary, but at least inform the court that you cannot do this. I did want to inform the commission that that's an additional measure in addition to talking to the judges that I'm telling the attorneys to consider doing, filing motions to withdraw and citing the Constitution and the rules of professional conduct.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I talked about this. No, you should hear me from the owl, I think. Can you hear me? Okay. I do talk about
now I
this.
can't.
Okay, I do talk about this in every public forum that I'm invited to, and Kevin and I are both invited to, and we'll be speaking at the State Bar Convocation on legal deserts. I think it's August 31st. Kevin didn't mention, and I didn't mention, but I'll mention it now, that Kevin and Wendy Sotolongo have been in their spare time, of which they have none, doing a lot of work with Jimbo Perry, who's on the Chief Justice's Commission for Professionalism, and with stakeholders around the state. And I've been sitting in with them some too, on sort of creative alternatives to get folks, especially into rural areas. And they're looking in particular, and this is moving pretty quickly, at trying to develop a regional nonprofit to provide legal services, maybe just parent defense, maybe parent defense and some criminal defense. That would contract with IDS. The beauty of a nonprofit is it gives the lawyers who work there some chance at loan forgiveness down the road. And we know that big loan payments are an impediment to folks moving and hanging out of shingle sometimes. So there's a lot of effort out there. There's a lot of energy, but there's no short-term fix here. We need more money. We need to pay better. That would be a little bit of a fix, but it's not going to be the entire fix. So we're moving as fast as we can. And in terms of the caseload limits, I think as Kevin said, we need to empower the attorneys. And it's not just MAC counties. This is happening only worse in a lot of non-MAC counties, and they don't have the benefit of a Kevin or a Tucker to be vocal when they can no longer provide effective assistance to their clients and stop taking cases. But even if we put out, caseload advisories or limits, where does that leave us? It leaves us with judges either not giving somebody a lawyer, or with judges drafting unwilling attorneys to represent folks, which is also not optimal, right? It is a crisis, and I think everybody's doing their best to educate folks about it. We spend a lot of time on the phone and on the email begging people to step up and take cases, and we've had some success that way, but we need more lawyers doing the work. So.
I have one last question, Mary and Kevin, and this comes from my federal experience. Have we looked into doing encrypted kind of Zoom meetings with clients so that the attorney can in fact meet with the client in jail, set up a meeting for those especially the large jails that have this equipment?
Yeah, so one of the initiatives that I took when I started was to provide a mechanism other than in person to visit with jail clients. So I created and disseminated to District 10, District 11, and District 8, all of the districts, a method or an avenue in which you can visit your clients. So like Wayne County, they do HomeWave. Lenore County, they do iWeb Visit. Harnett County, they do iWeb Visit. Wake County, they do JurisLink. So I have provided that resource to the attorneys and encouraged them to utilize the resource. Of course, that is no substitute for the in-person, but at least they can maybe on a weekend or when they're in their office, because Wake County, you have to actually drive, about 10 minutes to the jail. It's not right next to the courthouse unless you're at the Public Safety Center, which very few are. So I have provided that to the attorneys for that alternative.
Kevin, if I could just briefly speak on that, because I am in Wayne County and practice in Lenore as well. I'm no longer on the list in Lenore County, but I'm on only the misdemeanor list in Wayne because I was overworked. But I do take advantage of that because going to the jail, this sounds terrible. It wastes so much time because you're sitting there waiting for a client. You can't do anything else because you have no internet service, and sometimes you can't take your phone in depending on where they place you. So I set up or have my staff set up conferences with my clients on an afternoon where I can have jail meetings. And it seems to pacify, for lack of a better word, my clients. They get to see me, they get to hear my voice. We talk about their case, even if there's not a lot to talk about. If they've been trying to reach me and just want to visit for no particular reason, they just want to see my face. That seems to work for me. So it would be beneficial if all counties had that availability. It's fairly new to Lenoir, but I've really taken advantage of that, and that has helped a lot. Because going to the jail it takes a lot of time. And we have 2 jails here in Wayne County. We have an annex, we have a smaller jail currently anyway. And so that's just, we have to figure out which jail our client is in and how, we can't see a bunch of people because we have 1 or 2 here and 18 in the other place. So the video chat has significantly helped in that aspect for us, for me anyway.
Thank you for that. Kate, I thought your hand was back up. Did you have something else? Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick that Carla Huff is on the Zoom with us, and we have this IALTA funded position that's all at 2 months old, and for the first time we have a staffer who's dedicated to helping us work on recruitment and retention. And Amanda Bunch, who's also new to us, is working hard on that as well. So I hope that will help. I don't think those 2 ladies can single-handedly solve the crisis, but at least it's dedicated effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll just share real quickly is as part of recruitment efforts have started reaching out to law schools outside of North Carolina, in addition to those that are in North Carolina, and getting on their list for career fairs for students that have graduated. I was thinking of, what if we are not from North Carolina, what drew us to North Carolina? And so focusing on some of these landlocked states that may not have mountains, may not have the ocean, and are very curious about what we have to offer and our accessibility to DC and Savannah. And I mean, we have a lot here. And so that is slow. I think part of that being the summer months. Have heard back from Iowa and Kansas. And so that is in progress. So haven't, so I think as time moves forward and career fairs and some of these specific events for specific law schools happen, that we'll start to see some more progress. I think the potential barrier is that we don't offer, money for someone to relocate. Other things that we can do is that, connecting them even to, I think, like our state employees credit union, if someone wants to, buy their home and, these things that are outside of, hey, we've hired someone, good luck, and, glad you're here kind of thing, but really supporting that process. Becky Whitaker, I don't think she's on here. Amanda and myself are also putting together a recruitment folder sometime next week. Hopefully when the air is back on, we will be getting a bunch of materials from the Chamber of Commerce as it relates to maps and things to do and all of these other important things of, why we live here and not someplace like, Montana, so to say. And I'll just say, if there are any other, recruitment ideas or even things that you've seen that you thought were either clever, feel free to send me, an email. I saw for social workers, it was Lionel Richie, and, it said, hello, is it you we're looking for? And I thought, oh, that's clever. I'm going to steal that. So just some things that get people interested. I think social media and LinkedIn is another option moving forward. Amanda, Becky, and I we're thinking of all these things and we're doing some things. Unfortunately, I don't think what we're doing is keeping up with the need that is significant. So thanks.
Thank you for that, Ms. Carla. Some good thoughts and approaches that you have, and we appreciate that. Anybody else on that? All right, so we'll move to update on technological initiatives and responses if we have it. James?
I have a follow-up on Mac that I need to.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Miss Angela. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And follow-up, this is a follow-up on Mac. And when we start talking about the automation process, when I give you this summary of what we go through to process the spreadsheets to get our attorneys paid, you will definitely see that we have a zero need for automation. But basically what happens when contractors are submitting their Mac spreadsheets, we know the spreadsheets, Kevin talked about spreadsheets, they're usually due on the 7th of the month, and that can vary depending on how the month falls. And they are sent to an email that we've set up that we receive all of the spreadsheets in. They also can copy me as well. But then once I get the spreadsheets, I look for obvious errors, just blatant errors that are on the spreadsheet. And I can sometimes make those corrections, but if there are corrections that they need to make, I send it back to the contractor for that verification or that correction. Then I have another folder that we move the spreadsheets to be processed. After the 7th, which is usually the deadline that they need to submit them if they're going to be on time, I have a 2-day window to review and prepare the spreadsheets for submission to finance. Okay, folders are set up for each of the contractors where their spreadsheets are moved when they're being prepared for processing. Our research assistant even has written a script to capture those spreadsheets, that spreadsheet data for the contracts that are submitted on time. Once the script is created, a spreadsheet is a spreadsheet with the data for the month reported, the month of payment. It has contractor information, including the name, contract number, the tax ID number. It has hours, expenses, and the final payment amount. This is great because before we had to manually enter this data into a spreadsheet, which made it very tedious. So once the script is created with the payment data, then it also identifies errors that still could be within that spreadsheet where the hours and the money does not match. And so we take the time to make sure that this is correct, and they don't go up until it is correct and they're reconciled. And once the script is finalized, it goes to the deputy director, Winnie, and if it's okay, then I send it to finance, to Aaron and his team. And we work closely with finance. We've worked closely with finance to ensure that we have a smooth process, and they've been very helpful in getting these done. And we have it down pretty good right now, where we have a window of review, a window for keying, and then the contractors are paid in a timely manner. The only problem we have is if they have late reports, they might not make the script because it doesn't pick up late reports. So they might have to go on another spreadsheet that is submitted for payment to finance. So that is a problem sometimes when we have late ones. And sometimes they're several months late. They have to be updated and keyed and to get paid. So I just want to make that note. We've had some problems with some spreadsheets. Sometimes they're corrupted by the contractors themselves, and we have to issue new spreadsheets. The research director, Chris, sometimes can correct these spreadsheets. There are errors sometimes in the formulas that cause errors. Sometimes they put hard numbers where it should be calculated, and that throws off the calculations. Some people have outdated Excel software that isn't compatible with our spreadsheet, and we have to manually help them get their information in. But one thing we've done recently to try to, and this will be really great once we move to an automated system, as James is going to talk about, is the review of possible overpayment. I usually look at a spreadsheet when it comes in, and if it exceeds $10,000 in total payment, or has really high, hours, then I refer it to the regional defender that works with that particular contractor. And if there are discrepancies that we know, then they will note that and we will request a explanation or even a timesheet from that contractor. And there are cases where there are clear errors in the time and the payment may be withheld until the corrections are made. And then there might be a reduction of the payment per the approval of the deputy director. So that with the automated system, we'll have that identified, and that would make it much easier. So it is a tedious process, but I think I'm thankful that we have come to be able to get it as smooth as possible so that our contractors are paid in a timely manner. Thank you. Any questions about that?
Thank you for that, Miss Angela. You get it done, Miss Angela. All that, you got to keep up with a lot, and we appreciate you. Anybody have any questions for Miss Angela? All right. Y'all are super quiet. Okay, so I'm going to go. So update, Mr. Blackwell. Do we have him?
Good morning. So I don't believe I stated so earlier, but I've been with IDS for about 5.5 months. I actually started in February on the go live date for eCourts. So since then, we've been working through some challenges associated with that change. And I've been able to complete an evaluation of our current IT resources and needs. One success that we have had is we've contracted with a vendor, JusticeWorks, for their Defender Data product. And that product is going to become our timekeeper for MAC. So our goal here is to resolve some of that tedious workflow that Angela was just covering and make it a little bit more efficient and pleasant for our MAC contractors to submit their payments to us. In addition to that, furthermore on that, we have an anticipated go live date for Defender Data of February 1st. And currently we are running about a month ahead of schedule. So things are going fairly well. And I will say a thank you to Whitney and Kevin Boxberger and Tucker Charles. They're going to be very instrumental in feeding information, feedback into that process to make it a little bit more usable and user-friendly for our contractors moving forward. Other IT recommendations are for us to upgrade our existing IDS database. It tracks some financial data for Capital Defender, et cetera. And then we also need to consolidate various other access databases and modernize our systems as a whole. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you, sir. All right, so before we move to remarks from the defense, I totally missed the minutes from the last commission meeting, approving the minutes from the last commission meeting. So can I please have a motion to accept the minutes of the April 28, 2023 commission meeting?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes.
All right, thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Ms. Thompson. All right, so we have a motion and second to adopt the April 28th, 2023 commission meetings. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye. All right. I think that gets us approval. Thank you very much. Take it, I don't have any nays, or I don't know how my little hand just got up there because I really did not put it up there. I did not touch it, y'all, I promise. I guess something's happening on my end too. Anyway, I'll figure that out. Mary, did you have it? Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to remarks from the defense. So we'll start with you, J. Chad Perry. Oh, Mary, I thought I saw your hand. Okay. Thought I saw it and then you took it down, so.
So we've been going about 90 minutes and I know I don't get to make motions, but I'm gonna make one anyway. I would move for a 5-minute break.
Oh. All right, we can do that. We'll take it. I'm so
All right.
sorry, y'all. I'm so used to just
okay.
kind of the rolling through. So yes, let's take about a 5. Actually right at 11:30. So we'll hop back up to 11:35 or so. And J. Chad Perry, you'll be up.
Thank you.
All right. I just assumed people were like going in and out as they needed to, so I wasn't even. I'm not that tyrant of a chair, y'all.
I think it's hard for Mary to leave while the meeting's ongoing. Other people may be
Yeah,
able
for
to
sure,
speak.
for sure, from Mary. I get it.
Yeah, I have, yeah. I can, I'll send an email to you, okay?
All right, so right at 11:35. I see Mary's still in the room. Just wait.
I'm going to see Barbie tonight.
Oh.
Well, see if we see Beth. Are you still on? I know your video is off, but I wanted to make sure you were. I think you're on here for.
It's 11:35.
I think we are good. The IDS staff here, Dorothy, we're
Okay.
ready for you to pick up when you decide to proceed.
Okay. I just wanted to get, okay. All right, so we'll move to remarks from defense, starting with J. Chad Perry.
All right, good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Chad. I am Chief Special Counsel. I put my slide in the chat, so hopefully when I share my screen, it'll go smooth, but if not, it's in the chat.
All right. Have y'all given him the ability to be able to share his screen? Oh, there we go. All right. There you go, Chad.
Okay, cool. All right, so April marked my 1-year anniversary, thanks to you all. So I am appreciative of that. So I just wanted to give you all a basically our year in review, a snapshot of some of the things the special counsel has been doing for the past year. As I've always have stated, our mission is to provide compassionate and zealous representation for community members facing civil commitments. In the past year, we have had some new additions join our office. We've had William Smith, Tamsin Kennett, and Jen Lucero. Those are our attorneys who have joined the office. They all have strong backgrounds in litigation. I believe that these additions have allowed us to provide stronger representation for our clients. Also, we were able to add Amber Knight as a legal assistant. We were able to take her from Holly Hill Hospital. She worked in admissions there for 18 years. Her expertise in the paperwork regarding commitments has been very beneficial to us. So these things have allowed us to provide better representation to the population that we serve. One thing that I've been able to do is have all of our attorneys have some cross-training experiences with our office at Central Regional. This has allowed all of our attorneys to have a greater knowledge base of commitments, because practicing commitments at a state facility is night and day from what our attorneys in our Raleigh office do. So that's been very great for our office. And then also I'd like to publicly acknowledge and thank Special Counsel Mary Vilas. Mary retired in February after doing commitments for about 35 years. Not all for special counsel, but 35 years of experience that we were able to have in our office was a big loss for us. And so, you know, obviously, you don't get that type of experience overnight, and we miss Mary. But I just wanted to publicly thank her for all she did for us. But I will say that I believe that since I have been in charge, I believe that we've improved our relationships amongst our offices. We're one office with 4 locations throughout the state. And so one of my goals has been to connect our attorneys and let them know that we're all part of a greater mission. Not only are we connected amongst ourselves, but I also want them to understand our connection to IDS and the public defenders that are out there joining us in representing these indigent clients. Okay, let me see. All right, so our data is as follows. Our state hospitals, you can see our case dispositions. Central Regional and Butner disposed about 1,500 cases. Broughton Hospital, which is in Morganton, about 690 dispositions. And Cherry in Goldsboro has disposed 994 cases. Our Raleigh office, those case dispositions are unknown, and I'll get into the reasons in a second, but largely that's because of e-courts. I can tell you, however, that last year, our fiscal numbers, we disposed of over 9,000 cases. I'm expecting that our fiscal year numbers for 2023 will be at that amount or maybe even exceed those numbers. Our state attorneys at the state hospitals, they handle about 30 cases a week. Our attorneys in the Raleigh office handle nearly 100 cases a week. And so that's a big difference, but the state hospitals, they have different challenges than us in Raleigh. And I'll kind of get into that in our next few slides. One of the things that has been important to us is our education and training. In January, we assisted School of Government with the Biennial Commitment Conference. Our OFC attorneys were able to help in the planning of that conference. Another thing that we were proud of was Special Counsel Jason Lunsford presented at the PD conference in May. For us, that's a big deal. I've been in the IDS PD world off and on since 2008, and I can't remember special counsel presenting on any issues at the conference. So we're really proud of Jason for that. Also, OSC has been assisting in helping train some of the admissions staff at several of our new hospitals. And that's one of the big things that we've had on our plate, which I'll discuss in a moment. All right, so challenges. This has been a historic period, obviously, for our courts in general. E-courts has had just a huge impact. The impact has been very unique as it relates to commitments. Right now, the only office that has been directly impacted has been our Raleigh headquarters. As challenging as the rollout has been for other areas of law, I would contend that commitments has been even more challenging. Our office in the past 5 months or 6 months since e-courts has been rolled out, has had to adjust weekly, sometimes daily. I got a bit of bad news yesterday about how we're going to have to shift again some of our procedures. And I expect that we will have to remain flexible for the foreseeable future. One of the things that e-courts has failed to take into consideration is the many unique moving parts of involuntary commitments. You have the hospitals, the clerks, you have the attorneys, admissions offices, doctors, nurses. All of these different people need to be trained on how to use the system. Unfortunately, that has not happened. And that's been a huge detriment to our just overall day-to-day operations. When I mentioned earlier that our Raleigh office does not have our fiscal year statistics, that's one of the reasons why we do not have our statistics yet. Currently, right now, we have dozens, maybe hundreds of cases where our office where we're unable to properly track those cases, mainly because of inefficiencies in the e-filing system. Our office has cases that we are aware of that the clerk's office is not counting. They're not docketing these cases. And so the clerk's office has a official docket, but we're telling them that we have a substantial number of clients that they're not counting for their numbers. So our numbers are going to be inconsistent with what the clerks have. The other issue is that the clerks, they're overworked and they are unable to go back and fix some of these errors dating back to the first week of the rollout. So it's been pretty grim. Initially, our attorneys, our legal assistants were working really long days, sometimes 10 to 12-hour days processing our paperwork. Fortunately, Mary Pollard has granted us a temporary legal assistant, and so that has helped us in cutting down our time. And also, we have had to have a shift in how we do things. Our attorneys have had to take on some of the administrative roles just so that we can be good partners with our legal assistants and help to get them home at a decent time. And so that's been really, really challenging, and we've had to pivot quite often in how we do things. One of the things that I would also point to that has been different for us is that we've had some new hospitals that we're responsible for representing.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, it's not for me.
Ms. Thompson, we have you. Can you mute your mic, please?
Okay, so we have had a new hospital that we picked up in April, Raleigh Oaks, which is in Garner. It's going to have, when fully staffed, 100 beds. We've also are picking up a children's facility in Fuquay next month called Hope Center for Peace. That's going to provide 16 beds for children. And then some of you may be aware of on the news that in Butner, the old R.J. Blackley facility is going to be a psychiatric hospital for juveniles. And the prediction is that they're going to have about 50 beds for children. In September, we will be losing in Raleigh one of our better hospitals in terms of care, UNC Wake Brook. As of yesterday, WRAL is reporting that a private facility will eventually take over that hospital. So we're not sure when that hospital will reopen. But I say all of that to say that as it currently stands in Wake County, our attorneys are servicing pretty much most areas of Wake County except for North Raleigh. And so we're providing a lot of legal assistance to folks throughout Raleigh. And in 2027, we are gaining a new facility through Wake Med Hospital that will have 150 beds. So we're already stretched thin, but we're making it work. I'm glad to report. And then finally, I think probably many of you are aware, I think the biggest issue in the commitment world has been the intersection of the House bill patients, those inmates who are found incapable to proceed, the fact that they are waiting in local jails, awaiting transport to state hospitals. We see it all the time on the listserv. We get calls from our fellow public defenders. Just wanted to let everyone know that we are aware of the issue. This is a systemic issue that is of nationwide concern. It doesn't just impact North Carolina. And it's one that there are no easy answers. I think the issue is that we need a robust budget for mental health. These hospitals right now simply do not have the staff that's necessary to take these patients or these inmates who are waiting transport. But special counsel, we have attorneys at each one of these facilities to address concerns. We want to hear these concerns from our fellow public defenders. We want to know how we can help our mutual clients, because there's many times where we represent these same people who the assistant public defenders represent. So we like to keep those lines of communication open. And I can tell you all that I have had conversations with Disability Rights of North Carolina, and they are aware of these issues, and there is probably litigation that is sure to follow in the future on making sure that these folks, their due process rights are met and that they're not languishing in the jails. And so we hear those concerns, and please reach out to us as a resource. And so that is our year in review. And if there's any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to us. We want to be of assistance to everyone who has questions about these patients that are waiting at particularly state facilities. Jason Lunsford in our office has been one of our go-to people in terms of helping to address some of those concerns. And so please feel free to reach out. And if you all have any questions, I'm available to take them now.
Any question? Kate, I see you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Chad. That was really helpful to hear such an overview. And again, another crisis situation that I know is not just North Carolina, but obviously a nationwide. But in particular, I wanted to ask you, Chad, if you had heard much about the start of the restoration units in Mecklenburg County's detention facility and maybe somewhere else, I'm not sure. And whether you think that'll create any relief in terms of the folks being able to get to Central Regional more quickly, and if it's being planned for anywhere else besides Mecklenburg.
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So that is something that last year, probably in the fall, there were some conversations about, but nothing that I have heard from anyone recently in terms of the status of that pilot program. But in terms of to answer your question, my thoughts on it, I think that, at this point, the situation is so dire. And so although jail is not the ideal place for someone to receive treatment, I think it's a start for now. Obviously, I think a more therapeutic setting like a hospital is probably the best place. But in terms of, do I think that will directly improve the wait times that, Central Regional or Cherry or some of these state hospitals? I think that remains to be seen. I can say for one of the common, questions on the listserv has been involving the wait times at Cherry Hospital down east. And I spoke to Ben Turnage, our attorney there, a few days ago, and he's optimistic that the wait times are going to improve because they have hired some additional doctors and staff there. And so he thinks that maybe in a few months, there'll be some more relief for the folks in the eastern part of the state who are waiting in our local jails, waiting transport there. So I think it remains to be seen if that answers your question.
All right. Anything else from anybody else? All right. Thank you, Chad, for that report and for your great leadership. We have been really appreciative of you being on staff and leading that team and the great leadership that you have provided. we will move on to, is Beth on? Beth Hopkins Thomas.
Oh, hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi there. I'm Beth Hopkins Thomas. I have been the executive director at Prisoner Legal Services since 2020 now. Let's see, I'm going to share my video. There we go. Let's see. That is not my PowerPoint.
Cutie pies, though. We'll take it.
See, sorry, guys. View the slideshow. Here we go. So North Carolina Prisoner Legal Services, we're a private 501c3 nonprofit law firm that contracts with IDS to provide our clients meaningful access to the courts. And our clients are the approximately a little bit over 30,000 individuals that are incarcerated in our prisons currently. We have a staff of 19 attorneys, including myself, and 14 support staff. And we are governed by a board of directors, which you guys are going to address your appointment a little bit later. We have a little bit higher ratio of staff due to the way that we communicate with our clients, which is exclusively by letter back and forth. I am quite impartial and have the world's best team, and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about what we do to provide the meaningful access for our clients. Let's see if the video will work here.
Directly behind me is Central Prison, one of the 53 state prisons that currently house the 30,000 people incarcerated in North Carolina. At North Carolina Prisoner Legal Services, we make it our mission to serve, empower, and advocate for these 30,000 people through free legal representation, educational materials, and self-help packets. Let me tell you more. As you can imagine, it is very difficult for people in prisons to access or even afford legal representation, especially once convicted. So the need for accessible and free legal advice is constantly growing. Whereas you or I may be able to save up for an attorney to handle a medical malpractice claim, appeal a wrongful conviction for a loved one, or research a simple legal problem, people in prisons do not have that same access. In fact, most people in North Carolina do not have access to a law library, printing services, assistive technology, Wi-Fi, or even translation services. The process of accessing medical or mental health care is even more challenging, leading to thousands of grievances being filed each year. At NCPLS, we investigate these claims and fight for humane, safe, and constitutional prison conditions wherever we can. We also review cases to correct illegal or miscalculated criminal sentences, often saving people months or even years of their life. As our community grows each year, so does our drive to make North Carolina a safe and fair place for all people, regardless of what side of the gate you find yourself on.
Our team put together that video, and I thought they did a fantastic job. But I'll tell you a little bit more about our two different teams. We have the post-conviction team that seek relief through motions for appropriate relief. They identify errors in conviction, including ineffective assistance of counsel, illegal sentences due to prior record level errors, indictment errors. We do newly discovered evidence claims, prosecutorial misconduct, as well as innocence claims. And here's a pretty cool comparison that you can do from the last few years with PLS to see what our litigation has accomplished. You'll see there was a little dip with COVID where the cases were really held up in courts. But you'll see that we've blasted through those numbers in the last year as the backlogs are starting to come through and hit our desks. You can see if you do the days saved per year by the average cost of prisoner per day, and you can see that the organization saved over $5.7 million to our state through correcting illegal sentences for our clients. In 2022, we opened over 5,770 post-conviction files. That is 500 more than in 2021. And again, I think that that's reflective of the backlog coming through. And then that we were able to save over 165 years for those clients last year. And frankly, I think it's been quite repetitive through everyone's presentations, but we anticipate that we're going to be quite affected by errors coming through e-courts as we're being made aware of things that are happening every day in our pilot counties. These cases are going to be hitting our desks, and we're going to be litigating them for the full future, because it's not pretty. Some of our recent litigation, I won't read it out to you, but our attorneys have been quite successful all throughout the state in their litigation, everything from ineffective assistance of counsel in New Hanover County, fixing habitual felon predicates, and doing prior record level work. Saves years and years of each of these clients' lives. We had a really cool culmination of years of litigation, starting under Mary Pollard. She oversaw hepatitis C litigation, in which our conditions of confinement team sued our Department of Public Safety for better screening, education, and treatment of the clients in the prisons with hepatitis C. It was successfully settled in 2021, and we received national recognition from the Impact Fund organization in San Francisco in May for the success of the litigation. And it was really cool to be there because they were really upholding the systemic change that we were able to accomplish in that litigation as a beacon of hope in a quite sad year in regards to impact litigation. So we have had a few other successful civil cases, mostly involving either sexual assault claims or excessive use of force claims. Most recently, we settled a sexual assault case from Anson Correctional for a client for $14,000. And that was in the Industrial Commission. And then we have a pending 1983 civil rights claim for failure to protect in the Eastern District that involves a client being attacked not once, not twice, but 3 times by the same group of people, and the prison officials doing nothing to protect that client. So we're very interested to see how that case plays out. As I mentioned, we definitely anticipate seeing many more cases come through as each level of litigation is working through their COVID-19 trial backlogs. And so we think that that's going to increase our workflow, listening to the appellate defender and the trial level attorneys. We also want to expand the scope of our work, wanting to do work involving, there's about 100 people that are eligible for 25-year, essentially judicial review of life sentences. There is the statutory mandate for it, but there's no real hearing rights or procedure that are entailed in that statute. So we're trying to work to get our clients to have meaningful hearings with it. So we would love to expand more with those cases and want to work with IDS to see how we can fund those. And then we are working with other groups, ACLU, Disability Rights, Emancipate, and NC, to tackle solitary confinement in the upcoming year. I know that was a whole lot to throw at you, but if you have any specific questions, I'm here for it.
Questions, anyone? Thank you for that report, Beth. You all are doing some good work. You have a good team there with you as well. And the video was really, really cool.
Thank you. Thank you. We're proud of it.
Got some younger people that know how to get that, how to approach the things on social media. So Mary, oh, you're clapping, Mary. Okay, I gotta see the differences in the. That's Mary clapping. All right, thank you. All right, so moving on to more commission business, IDS rules and policies, starting with Eric Zagrai. Legal representation of juvenile murder cases update. Woohoo!
Thanks, Judge.
Not
So
happy about the murder cases, but just the fact that we're addressing.
I
representation.
think, yes, I think we all took that in the manner in which you expressed. So really today, just a brief update. Thanks to the commission again for approving the rules back in April. In your materials, what you have is a very detailed plan of how we are going to get to where we need to go. There's really 4 major areas we're working on now. Creating the processes for appointment, payment of attorneys, and then approval and payment for experts. The second is creating a roster. The third is providing continual and additional training like we started in March. And the last is stakeholder outreach, making sure folks know what's going on. I don't really have an ask of the commission today. I just wanted to show you kind of what we're working on to get ready for appointment. My goal is by the next meeting, I might be asking the commission for an actual active date, depending on how much work we can get done between now and then. But I'm fairly certain we are going to be prepared. I shared this draft with Whitney and Mary just to make sure we weren't missing anything. We've already got meetings scheduled with several people involved, and we've already worked on a number of the pieces of this project in anticipation that we would go live. So I think we're on pretty steady ground right now, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from anyone? I had the benefit of being able to serve on that smaller committee, so got my questions answered there. Anybody? Kate? Usually go. All right. We're missing Staples today for sure. Okay. All right. Thank you, Eric. Yep. Mary, expert payment authorization procedures and update.
All right. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, as you may know, as part of my job as executive director, I sign a lot of things. I have to sign every raise request, salary adjustment request for every assistant public defender in the state. I sign travel reimbursement. I sign capital fee applications, capital post-conviction fee applications, and expert fee applications in all of those cases. And we'll only back up a little bit. In December of 2019, I had Beth Hopkins Thomas's job, and I attended the IDS commission meeting to give a presentation that wasn't nearly as great because that video was great. But at that meeting, Tom Maher talked to the commission about how maybe he didn't have the executive director of IDS shouldn't spend time signing all of those fee applications. And at that time, I thought, I think it's a good idea for the executive director to review and sign the attorney fee applications. His conclusion and the conclusion of the commission at that time. And I to this day, I believe that I do bring some value to reviewing and signing the capital fee applications, right? Because I kind of know what lawyers do, and I can read a fee app and see if it makes sense. And Kati and her team do a great job spotting issues and bringing them up to me. And sometimes I have to reach out to Rob and we address issues or concerns with particular lawyers. Expert fee applications are a different matter. I kept my time one week and I spent more than 2 hours, close to 3 hours reviewing and signing expert fee applications. And I don't really spend a lot of time reviewing them, right? We look at them. I don't bring any value to this process. Kati Rosu and her team make sure that the expert work was appropriately authorized by the Office of the Capitol Defender, and that that there's money left in that authorization to pay the expert. And then I sign it. Really, the only person who brings value to reviewing those fee applications are the lawyers who retain the experts and supervise their work. And they get copies of the bills and copies of IDS's award of payment. In non-capital cases, judges authorize expert spending, right? So in capital cases, Rob Sharp does it, or his designee. In non-capital cases, judges do it. And then the experts send their fee applications to fiscal services and then just get signed. They don't go back to the judge for review. They just get signed. So to wrap this up, I'm spending a lot of time signing expert fee applications, bringing little value to the process. So I consulted with Rob and with Aaron Gallagher and with our general counsel. Aaron is of the belief that my signature is not required for audit purposes. That Kati could sign these and pay these. Kati serves the purpose of making sure that the money is there. And I think what it is of more value, and what I've asked Will and to work with Chris Sadler on and Stephen, is to get Rob Sharp and I quarterly reports of expert spending by category, because it's a lot more informative for both of us to know where the spending is happening, right? To be proactive and to know what's going on there. For example, are we spending a lot more in digital forensics? Are we spending less in this particular thing? Are there particular experts who are spending too much in total? You know, those are the sorts of things we can intervene and address if we think it's appropriate. So we don't need a vote on this. This is one of these things that I am advising you of, and because I work for you. If anybody has undue concerns about us changing the policies so that the director no longer signs expert fee applications, I would like to hear those concerns, because maybe I'll change my mind. But I guess my request is any feedback or concerns about what we would propose to be a policy change where the executive director no longer signs each individual expert fee application, but instead gets quarterly reports on expert spending. So are there questions or concerns?
Anybody? I will say, Mary, that I think that anything that we can do to help lighten your load and be able to have your attention be in the places where we really need it to be is beneficial to everyone. And I personally, and I think I speak on behalf of the commission, we trust your judgment in this area and the fact that you are approaching it in this way. Anybody else though? All right, thank you, Mary, on that. And so we don't need a vote, so here we go. All right, so let me see, I'm getting a check of time. All right, so we are at the place for the IDS Commission appointment and well, first let's start with the appointment of Commissioner Finhagen. Kate, you want to stay, right?
If you'll have me.
Sure.
I would like to stay.
Exactly. All right. So let me see. So I will we just need a motion for that, right? Just for reappointment of Kate. So if I could receive a motion and a second on the reappointment of Kate Finhagen as commissioner with us, please.
I'll make that motion for reappointment of Kate.
All right. Thank you, Brian.
This is Stacy. I'll second.
All right. Thank you so much, Stacy. So we have a motion and a second to reappoint Kate Finhagen to our commission as a commissioner. And all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All right. All right. Thank you all. We will continue to have you serve with us, Kate. We appreciate your service. And I know you are excited as you always are. All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Next appointment that we have to deal with is our appointment to the North Carolina Prisoner Legal Services Board. As you know, or if some of you were able to get on the last commission meeting that we had in April, we started a discussion about this. We were looking to make the appointment then, but we had at that time only received one name and request to be reappointed, which was by Kelly Manette. She is our appointee to that board. She actually serves is on that board serving and is also the president of the board. We don't vote on her being the president, but we actually do need to vote on her continuing to be the appointee, our appointee to that board. This would be her second term, if I remember correctly. Actually expired in June, but we read in the bylaws that it would continue until we were able to address this now. Yes, Mary.
I just wanted to be heard before the.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure. I was actually about to come to you. So I just wanted to kind of give that overview, the update from the last meeting, and which is why we are here now addressing this again. What I had actually asked you all to do was take a look at the bylaws and the board makeup, that particular board makeup. And so that we were hoping to receive some other names to vet. And so with that being said, I will hear from you, Mary.
So I only have, I have one other name for you. I did reach out and did want the commission to have other names to continue. And I'm sorry, okay, I'm back. I lost my Zoom for a minute. Of course, it's important for this commission to have a strong voice on the PLS board that represents IDS's interests, because we delegate a statutory duty that this agency is vested with to this entity that we contract with. And that's the duty to make sure that people in prison have meaningful access to the court. And I think it's important that the IDS Commission perspective, which is that PLS can do all of the good work that it wants, as long as it's doing its bread and butter work of providing the individual prisoners, right, in the state facilities with access to the courts, because they don't have other access. They don't have law libraries, where PLS is all that they have. So I think you heard a presentation from Beth Thomas today where it's pretty clear that Beth Thomas understands that and gets that, and they're doing a lot of good work on behalf of individual folks, and I'm grateful for that, because it's something that's close to my heart. And I don't have any reason to believe that perspective is not represented on the board. But since I had to go out and find other names, I did find one other name. And if this person is not, if Kelly's reappointed, I throw this out for Beth Thomas to consider for other board openings. Tom Maher said that he would be willing to serve. And he's certainly somebody, having been executive director of the IDS Commission for however long he was, a long time, knows the IDS perspective. So I had done my duty to provide you all with an additional name. I will rest in silence now. Thank you for the presentation, Beth.
Thank you for that, Mary. Art.
If I can get it.
There you go, sir.
I just wanted to I wanted to make sure everybody knew that we are putting Westlaw, which is a electronic version of Westlaw, on all the tablets. So if the institution has their inmates who have tablets, they have access to Westlaw. Anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Art. I think you were going in and out, but I think we got the gist of it. Yes, Mary.
Well, so Art was, people with tablets will have access to Westlaw. What I wondered is, does everybody have a tablet? And of course, that doesn't address things like language barriers and literacy barriers, but does everybody have a tablet? Because I think that's a.
I don't know if Art, did you hear that question? I
I'm
don't,
just curious, I can
Okay,
find out another time.
I think the answer to that is that they have access, but it's not like a one-to-one. But when they need it, they get the access to it.
Okay.
Kate, did you have something on that?
And no, I was going to go back to the PLS appointment.
Yes, ma'am.
Just two obviously very heavy hitters and
Yes.
wonderful people. Are we going to, do we just take a vote? I mean, make a motion at this point? I mean, if we think Kelly is interested and is already on there and doing a good job and is wanted by the board to stay, I guess I would move to appoint Kelly. But I don't know if it's time for a motion or not. But I also obviously can't go wrong.
It is. We can entertain a motion now. That's why I gave you kind of overview of what the discussion that we had already had back in our last meeting. Kelly Manette was the only name that had been put forth. And she expressed her interest herself in continuing to serve as our appointee to that board. And so we did not vote at that time, hoping to get other names to vet just so it could, to have a complete and full process in this. And so we are here at that point. And so, yes, we can entertain a motion in regards to our appointee to that board.
Then I would make the motion to appoint Kelly Manette to the PLS board for a second term.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion to reappoint Kelly Manette to the North Carolina Prisoner Legal Services Board, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. And with the clapping of Art Bueller, we have made our appointment to that board. So I know, Mary, you will communicate that, as well as Beth. I think Beth Beth is still on here. So Beth, I know you will communicate that. And like I said before, their bylaws indicate that their board actually votes for their officers. And so as of right now, she has been serving as the president of that board. So she clearly, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm pausing because I'm reading comments in the chat at the same time. I'm trying to keep up with all of this at the same time. All right, so thank you for that. Moving along, we have any other business starting with the quarterly misconduct report, if there is a report from you, Whitney.
I'm sorry, Dorothy. I was looking at the chat too. I submitted a paper report in your packet. There was one attorney whose misconduct led to censure. I only included it in the packet because the commission has in the past requested to receive the name of anyone who fails to respond in a timely fashion to the discipline hearing commission or the state bar. This attorney has not submitted bills to IDS for a little over 2 years. So I don't think that there is any action needed by the commission. I just wanted to share the information in the written packet.
All right, thank you for that. Or anybody have any questions of Whitney in regards to the information that she submitted in the packet or what she just said? I appreciate getting it that way too, Whitney. All right, request for waiver of fee application deadline, if we have any from you, Chad.
No.
Boykin.
Yeah. Sorry, not Jay Chad.
Right.
He's the good looking one. There's no waivers to be heard this time.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. So we are at a place, you all. All right. So we are at a place where we can go. I think we do have some matters that we do need to go into executive session about. So I was thinking that we would get to, okay, well, I was thinking that we would go until about 1 o'clock and break for lunch at that time. But I will hear from you all. This might be a good start. Or how much discussion do you think that how much time do you think we would need for the discussion in executive session?
I think that if the commission pushed through and went into executive session now, that we might be able to adjourn as early as 1:15 or 1 or between 1 and 1:30. I think it would be worthwhile for the commission to go directly into closed session unless there's someone who's just starving, and we won't be asking for a vote. So it's more of an informational session, just an update on the current status.
That's exactly what I wanted to hear from you in regards to the time. So does anybody have an objection to us just continuing to go forward? Because I know that you all would much rather us finish earlier rather than later. And we could just push through. All right. Thank you for that thumbs up, Mary.
Dorothy, what I would like to do is send the commissioners, Mary and me, into a breakout room.
Okay.
We do need a motion to go into executive session, and at this time, I think it is only a motion pursuant to 143, 338, 11A3, which is to allow the commission to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body.
All right, I think I heard Art make that motion. Second. Brian, I see you raise your hand. Thank you so much, gentlemen. All right, so we have a proper motion and second to go into executive session pursuant to the general statute that was just read by Whitney. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. All right, I think that's all the commissioners. All right, so we can get us in that breakout. Thank you, Whitney. That would make it easier for us to just go into a breakout room and then come back.
Jamie will come up when we're done.
So just please join when you see it pop up, commissioners, to join that room if you could just join.